Alright, so it's been a little bit since I made my other video where I was kind of like talking about Smite 1 and Smite 2 and kind of like what's the point of calling it Smite 2? And I feel like a lot of people kind of missed the point of what I was talking about in that video. Because in my last video, some people were cool enough to actually kind of get what I was saying and they were like, oh, you know, the first game had spaghetti code, and so moving it over to this other thing and changing all of that, like it's easier for the devs to update and everything because Smite 2 doesn't have the spaghetti code, and so that's great, that's cool. Love that for the devs. But I still kind of stand with my whole thing of like, what's the fucking point? Because there's not really much of a difference for players, you know? Like, I just I'll talk about it a little bit later. I kind of want to talk about a couple other things for my last video first though, cuz some other people were just like saying some weird shit. Like one person was like, "Good, I don't want your negativity in Smite 2." And it's just like I wasn't even really being negative. I was just saying that calling it Smite 2 just doesn't make any fucking sense because it's basically the same fucking game. So, like, why call it Smite 2 if it's basically the same fucking game? Like, sure, they didn't kill Smite 1 for Smite 2, but it still doesn't really make sense to call it Smite 2 because it's still just the same fucking game. Also, to bring up Overwatch again, because I kind of brought up Overwatch in my last video, um, apparently they're thinking of taking the 2 off of Overwatch 2. Apparently they already did that for China version, because, like, for a while Overwatch wasn't available in China for whatever stuff. I think some whatever thing expired and then they didn't renew it or something. I forget exactly what it was, but yeah, Overwatch wasn't available in China for a while and then they brought it back, I guess, and now it's there, but it's not called Smite 2, or it's not called Overwatch 2. I'm mixing the names up already. Um, so maybe they're gonna take the 2 off for everyone else. So, that makes sense because Overwatch 2 doesn't make sense because it's still kind of the same game, just slightly different. So, like, the whole reason of Overwatch 2 is kind of dead now, so there's no reason for it to be called Overwatch 2 now because they're not doing the story mode, so, there's that. But yeah, I wasn't even saying anything of like, oh, this game's horrible, this game fucking sucks. I was just saying that calling it Smite 2 wasn't, like, it kind of just didn't make any sense. Like, I wasn't saying the game was bad or dead or some shit. Like, what the fuck? Also, even if someone does criticize it, like, bruh, like, shouldn't you want the game to be better? Like, criticizing a game doesn't mean I hate it or whatever, it just means that I want it to be better, so, like, bruh. And then another comment, someone was like, oh, clearly you never looked into anything, and clearly you need to play the game to understand. And it's just like, I did look it up, and maybe I just forgot exactly everything, because when people did bring up spaghetti code for the first game, I did kind of remember something like that. Um, but also, it's like I did play both games. I literally have gameplay of me playing Smite 1 and Smite 2 in the background of the videos, so like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, bro. So, like, either this person didn't watch the video, or they watched the video and they didn't notice that I played both games and put gameplay in the background. So either way, this person looks like a fucking fool. Like, You either didn't watch it and you didn't freaking listen to anything or watch anything, or you watched it and you proved me right that both games are basically the same fucking thing, which, I don't know, maybe people want it to be the same exact thing and they want nothing different. I mean, it is supposed to be just like a MOBA, but like, I don't know, again, why are we calling it Smite 2 if it's basically the same thing? I just, I don't, that's the only thing that I really, whatever, it's like, you know, for the whole spaghetti code thing, like, cool, I love that the devs can give us more updates faster and, sooner and whatever, and we can have all that. And then, like, the whole spaghetti code making it harder to patch bugs and stuff. Like, they're gonna have an easier time to patch bugs and stuff with Smite 2. But it's still just like, what about for the players? Like, what's new or better for the players? Like, there's barely any difference. Like, there's small differences with, like, the maps, and there's small differences with, like, the item store and stuff. But, like, I feel like it's just not enough to really make it feel like a new version of Smite, you know? Like what's really like a big difference that makes it feel like a different game, you know? Again, bring up Overwatch, where I mean, they did have it go from 6v6 to 5v5 in Overwatch, but it's still, I don't know, like, I guess that was kind of a different thingy, but like, is it big enough to really be like, oh, second game, sequel, whatever? Like, I don't know. It's like if you made a movie and then you're like, oh yeah, here's your movie, whatever. Go see it in theaters or, you know, see it on this streaming platform. And then you're like, oh hey, we're gonna make a sequel. And then it's like the name of the movie, but with a 2 at the end. And then the only difference between the first movie and the second movie is maybe a few scenes are changed. Or maybe there's some added scenes or removed scenes. Maybe the music in this scene is slightly different. Like, you can't really call it a sequel when there's only slight changes to it, right? So, I don't know, I just feel like having the Smite 2 thing just doesn't really make any sense. Like, or like if there's a book, you're like, hey, here's my book, get it at bookstores near you or on this website or whatever. And then you make a sequel, and it's like the, title that's basically the same thing but with a 2 at the end. And then you're like, here's my new book, get it in stores and whatever, too. And then maybe a chapter is slightly different. Or like, there's an added chapter or something. Maybe a few sentences are slightly different in a few chapters. But it's like, why is it two? Why is it a sequel? Like, what? I mean, sequel might not make any sense, but I don't know. Like, having a two there. Like, what's the point of having a two there if it's basically the same fucking thing? Usually with movies, when they do like extended whatever, it's just called extended. It's like, Lord of the Rings extended edition. I don't. What other movies have extended editions? I can only think of Lord of the Rings at the top of my head, but, you know, there's probably so many other movies that have like extended whatever director's cut, and then it's like slightly different or has added stuff to it, so it's like, however much longer. Um, but it's like Smite 1 and 2 don't really have that, where it's like, you know, completely different game or whatever. Like they just have it where it's like slightly different, and it's kind of just like, what's the point then? I don't know. I mean, again, like with the spaghetti code, great for the devs and everything, but it's just like, what about for the players? Like, I don't know. Like for those of us who really like Smite, we're probably gonna play Smite 1 and Smite 2. But for those who are not so like into it or like, they're just casual, whatever, and like I don't know, there might be like newer players who are like, just want to play whatever game and they don't care to play two different games that are basically the same fucking thing. They just want to stick to the one. Or maybe they don't have that much space on their hard drives and they just want to have the one game. They don't want to uninstall and install, like go back and forth with those, with uninstalling and installing both games just to play both of them. Like, I don't know. If you don't have enough space, you could probably delete some other things to have both games, but like for those of us who do like both games, we're probably gonna play both games. But those other people who don't really care as much and they're just casual players, they're probably just gonna stick to one or two. And then it's kind of just like, there's probably no reason for them to play both games. And then I mean, there are probably still a lot of people who really care about the games, but then they're like, hey, Smite 1 has all of my items, like all my skins and, the music themes and everything. And so they're probably just gonna be like, what's the point of me moving over to Smite 2 if I don't have all the skins and stuff? And or maybe their favorite god isn't in the game yet, which I mean they are adding the older gods pretty quickly, but it's still kind of just like maybe some people just don't care to wait that long for their main god that they play, and so they're just gonna be like, whatever, I'm just gonna stay on the main game, the first one, and also just divides players even more because like already Smite 1 kind of had where I saw a lot of people saying like the game was like kind of dying in numbers, and so I was like that's kind of sad because I did kind of take a break from the first game, and then when Smite 2 came out, then I was like, okay, and then I got an alpha code and played a little bit, and then that's when I kind of made my first video. And then a little bit after my first video, then it went to like everyone, and now I'm making my second video here a little bit later. But yeah, it's just like, I feel like the player base will just be kind of split a little bit. And I did see some people saying that they didn't really care to go to Smite 2 because all of their items are on the first game, which I do completely get. Like, people spent money on the first game and, like, all their favorite gods are there, all their skins are there, all that. But yeah, so it's like I feel like the numbers, like if numbers were already bad, they're probably gonna be worse now if they're gonna be like splitting the player base between Smite 1 and Smite 2. And I mean, newer players can still always come to Smite 1 and Smite 2, but it's still kind of just like still splitting the player base, and it's still kind of good. Like I don't know, like people who like Smite 1 and Smite 2, even though they're kind of the same game anyways. But again, like a bunch of skins and stuff are, and like whatever gods on Smite 1 that aren't on Smite 2 yet. So there's so many skins on Smite 1 too. So it's like I, there's a lot of cool stuff there. And I mean Smite 2, if the whole spaghetti code isn't a problem now, then they should be able to get a lot of skins and gods there, but still just like I don't know. How long is it gonna take for them to get everything over, Seems like it's going kind of quickly, because they already kind of have quite a few skins and gods, but still not to the same extent as Smite 1 had it. Um, but yeah, like there's so many gods on Smite 1, like it might take a while for them to get them all on Smite 2, but and like the only differences is like Smite 1 and Smite 2 with like the maps are slightly different, and then the item shop, and then like some gods have slightly different abilities or they're like reworked altogether, so like their abilities are like completely different. So like yeah, I don't I feel like it's not enough to really be like, "Oh yeah, here's a 2 at the end. It's a new game." Like it just doesn't make sense. And again, like it's not like me being like, "Oh my God, the game sucks." Like it's just this thing doesn't make sense. So like why I feel like the people who commented that shit just didn't watch my video and didn't pay attention to anything that I said. And it's like, this is why you should watch the video instead of saying stupid shit because I wasn't even negative and I played both games. Like, so I don't know what the fuck those people were talking about. So it's just like, weird. But, some people were cool enough to be like, oh yeah, it's like spaghetti code and stuff, and that's kind of why they did that. But I still just feel like, why put a 2 at the end if it's basically the same game? You know? There's not enough of a difference for players to really call it a 2. Same with Overwatch. Like the whole point of Overwatch 2 was to have a story mode, and now that's gone, so they should remove the 2 from Overwatch 2. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of make another video about this to talk about it more, and yeah, so anyways, so I think that'll be kind of it because I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I don't think there's really anything else unless something else comes up later. Oh yeah, actually, before I just remembered something else I kind of wanted to talk about is that like it looks like a lot of the devs for Smite have been like fired or let go or whatever. Like there was some stuff about that however long ago where like people were posting about how they were like let go of hi-rez and stuff, and like it I guess also like one person had it where they were working there for like a day and then they got removed. So they only got to work on Smite for like a day or two and then they were let go, and it's kind of just like what the fuck? Like I what? You're just gonna let go of all of these devs and stuff and employees and just be like, fuck you, basically? Kinda weird. Especially if you want to work on this game and get a bunch of stuff out. Like, okay, I guess. But, yeah. Anyways, so, that might be it for this video then. Because, yeah, I don't think there's really anything else I need to talk about. So, yeah, anyways, I guess that's it. So, bye.